We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender, whatever the cost may be.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, and in today's episode we are going to be talking about daggers. Specifically, this one here is a World War II Fairbairn Sykes Fighting knife, made out of carbon steel, heat-treated and tempered blade, J. Noel & Sons in Sheffield, England. It is a fascinating design. I absolutely love it. It also has a lot of obviously rich history, being used by a lot of commando units in World War II. We'll put this one to the test, we'll put it through its paces, see what it's capable of, and we'll also maybe comment on the quality of this particular dagger as well, because I paid for this with my hard-earned money and I have a lot of thoughts. So with that out of the way, let's get started with today's episode. So, modifying our dagger. Now, as it comes originally, I do think it is perfectly functional. Obviously, it's just a little plain for my personal preference. And the funny thing is, if you actually go and look at some of the historical daggers, you know, some of the daggers that were actually used out there, there are not only different patterns, so there are different designs. Some have, you know, brass handles. Some even have, like, you know, wood handles from what I've seen. So there's kind of a lot of variety out there. And for my particular tastes, I would like to give this a nice wood handle, just personally, because I think the original handle is a little bit plain, a little bit slick, and I just want to go with something a little bit more personalized to myself, of course. So what I'm going to be using is this Jarrah burl, absolutely beautiful piece of wood that I've just had sitting around for ages, and I think this is the perfect project for it. So I cut a small little block off of that and then chucked it up in the lathe. Now I'm using obviously a metal lathe, but I can obviously machine wood because wood is a lot softer than metal, of course. Now a lot of this is just freehand machining. I do a lot of freehand machining. It's what I enjoy personally. But what I'm going to be doing is making it a little bit thicker than the original handle. I think the original handle is just a touch too thin. Personally, it doesn't mean it's not practical. I just think having a slightly larger handle that has a little bit more presence to it will give me a little bit better purchase without going outside of the limitations of the guard, of course. That's very important to remember. And then after I've gotten the shape exactly how I want it, I'm going to use some 200 grit sandpaper to sand it back. But the next thing I need to do is get the fit up. So obviously I did do some refinement after I took it off the lathe, and that is just making sure that the tang and everything fits together all nicely and all my tolerances are just correct, so that when it's tightened correctly, everything is the right length as well. So after I've gotten everything together, I'm going to put some beeswax on the handle. This will protect the handle, protect the wood, and it also gives it a nice feel in the hand, of course. I'm actually really happy with how the handle came out. It feels really, really nice in the hand, at least to me personally, but obviously it does have a slightly different balance now, because obviously the original was made out of steel that was cast at a specific size and weight to obviously get that balancing in a specific position, whereas the wood handle is obviously a lot lighter. But I think we'll go over that a little bit later. Next up, I need to sharpen the blade. This thing came with absolutely sharpening, if I'm being completely honest with you. Super inconsistent, super rough as well. So I was very unimpressed with the sharpening on it. So I took that over to a whetstone and decided to do it by hand. Usually I just do it on the belt sander, but in today's episode I thought it was good to take things at a little bit of a slower pace and just enjoy the process. So with that being said, I think that's all the modifications I'm going to make to my dagger. Let's get out there and let's see what this thing is truly capable of. Let's talk a little bit about the knife market itself, right? The knife dagger market. It is a very, very competitive market, not only on price point, but on quality. You know, EDC blades, fixed blades, camping blades, all that sort of stuff. Not only with custom pieces, but obviously mass manufactured pieces at a whole bunch of different price points at varying levels of quality, right? The problem I have with this particular dagger is I was honestly thoroughly unimpressed by the quality, especially to the price point ratio. And there's a couple of reasons why. So this is like a 4-piece construction, right? We have the bolt, we have the handle, we have the guard, and we have the blade itself. 4 pieces, super simple construction. On this particular type of dagger, you could forgive, you know, issues with the handle or the guard, or etc., as long as the blade is perfect. The problem that I've run into, especially with my dagger, is the blade was the worst part of it. There's a lot of little issues. For example, the actual blade doesn't sit flat on the guard. It's actually ground unevenly. Not only little bits of the lines from the tang extend onto the blade, which is obviously ugly and unsightly. In terms of the sharpening on the blade, it was very, very rough and super inconsistent all over the blade when I received it. So that is obviously not good at all. And then I saved the worst for last. There is a huge warp in the top of the blade. A huge warp, super unacceptable. Honestly, I would have sent it back. Obviously back when the war was being fought and these were being made in smaller batches and often hand ground, perhaps you would find blades with, you know, slight deviations or slight warps. We're not in that era anymore. We are in the era of essentially precision manufacturing, and that's what you get from pretty much every other manufacturer when it comes to blades and daggers, at a whole bunch of different price points, even cheaper than this. I could get a $40, $50 knife that would have cleaner lines than this one. So I feel like it's important to bring this point up because I am thoroughly unimpressed by the quality that I received. Here is our Fairbairn Sykes World War II Commando dagger. Finished and ready to go. I'm very, very happy with how obviously the new handle came out. I've tried to sharpen it up as much as possible. We obviously still have that warp, which I'm super fucking unhappy about, but we've been over the quality. We've been over kind of, you know, how it was made, the construction method, etc., etc. Let's actually put this thing a little bit to the test. Now, I don't know how much you guys are gonna be able to see on camera because obviously this is quite a small dagger on camera, and obviously this is quite a large scene. So I might have to zoom it in a little bit so you guys can see it. Now, in terms of the balance, like I said, on the original dagger, it was actually balanced to be around about here. So the balance point was around about here. But now, since I've finished my modifications, it is now pretty much right at the guard itself. So it's still incredibly light and nimble in the hand. It feels incredible. The ergonomics are fantastic, which I am really, really happy about. So hopefully we're able to test it now. In terms of its slashing capabilities, right? Because the blade is so short, getting through this particular medium is kind of difficult. Yeah, like that is, it's just a bit too big of a medium for this particular blade, but it is sharp and it does cut. I mean, there is nothing there in the slightest. Absolutely nothing there. The real test will obviously be things like the gambeson and the chainmail. The chainmail will be kind of like, if this can get through the chainmail on this, I'll be thoroughly, thoroughly impressed, because obviously that puts it on the kind of same sort of footing as something like a rondel, one of my favorite daggers. Okay, so in the book that we've been referencing in today's episode, All in Fighting, obviously when we go to the actual page or the section on knives, right? Now obviously this is by Fairbairn himself. It is essential that your knife should have a sharp stabbing point with good cutting edges, because an artery torn through, as against a clean cut, tends to contract and stop the bleeding. This frequently happens in an explosion. A person may have an arm or leg blown off and still live. Yet, if a main artery had been cut, they would quickly have lost consciousness and almost immediately have died. Good cutting edges and a good thrusting point, which is obviously the epitome of the blade design here itself. Then if we go over to the next page, we obviously have the blade itself. I believe this is a pattern 1 on this particular blade, the FS fighting knife. And what he actually gives us is a nice little bit of a breakdown in terms of where all the arteries on the human body are located. And I love this. This is my favorite part here. There's also an in-depth kind of breakdown of how long it takes you to lose consciousness and how long until you die. For example, if we just go to the carotid artery, the size of this artery, he gives us the size of them. This one is large. Depth below the surface, obviously how much penetration you need to actually reach it, is 1.5 inches. Loss of consciousness, 5 seconds. Death, 12 seconds. And he obviously gives us a breakdown of all the other different arteries that you have throughout your body. The reason why I'm using carotid artery is because That is the one where I've seen a lot of World War II veterans talk about. That is how they would actually use the blade a lot. And if we go over to the page after that, there is also a little bit of a drawing kind of explaining that particular technique for the carotid artery. So what we're going to be doing is kind of giving that a little bit of a test as much as possible. Now the carotid artery is a little bit interesting. Obviously in the neck, there is usually bits of muscle that cover it on each side, but it is quite shallow and easy to reach. And one of the techniques, obviously in the book, in the figure, but also that I have seen people talk about, is they'll come in from the side of the neck and then punch forward. Let us give that a go and let's see how cleanly that does. Obviously this is a water bottle here, but we do have a meat flesh analog, and that is what we're going to be using for that particular technique. If you are enjoying today's episode, and I genuinely hope that you are, perhaps you would consider supporting on Patreon. The entire channel mostly relies on funding from you guys to do a lot of these sorts of projects, to get all the things that I need, to destroy all the things that I do. It's very, very expensive. That's kind of what happens when you make original content. So if today you wanted to support the channel, I would appreciate it. There'll be a link down below to the Patreon. I hope to see you over there. But with that ramble out of the way, let's get back to today's episode. Obviously, it is not completely anatomically correct. It is not. This is just a loose analog. The reason why is because obviously we have thick layers of fat and then flesh, and then in between I have a bottle that'll simulate our, our blood, right? So this is kind of just to give me a feel of how easy it is to get through something that is actually flesh at an exposed area, and see if we can even kind of, punch through, push through, and see how easy it cuts, how easy it cleans and thrusts all at the same time. This should give us the perfect feel for this particular blade. All right, so we come in through the artery and rip it out. I mean, yeah, that is a very deep slash, deep rip. It went straight in, like it barely met any resistance. Go into the neck and rip out. Going again. Oh, see, that thrusting is just insane. We go in, we rip out. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know about punching out, right? This is a lot thicker than the muscles you're gonna have right around your neck here. Like, this is 1.5 inches thick of fat and muscle. Not the same as a neck, a little bit less obviously around there. So it'd be a little bit easier, but it just, in terms of the thrusting alone, the resistance is zero. There is zero resistance. It just goes straight in, barely any pressure required. The thrusting on this so far has been fucking phenomenal. I don't actually think that I've had a dagger as good at thrusting as this particular one. I'm trying to think if there's been anything, because there's lots of thrusting daggers that I've had, but this one is like a unique kind of incredible cross section with length that gives you a good amount of leverage to be able to just really thrust. But now it is time to move up to some more aggressive mediums to see how good the thrusting truly is. Got our gambeson here. Like I'm just trying as low effort as possible at first. And it is just, if you had this gambeson on, and that's barely any kind of effort at all. And I'm trying not to go too far because I obviously don't want to hit the core and fuck up the end of the blade more than it already is. But of course, it is just, it's like it's not even there. That's how good the thrusting is on it. So so far, we are performing exactly as expected. Now we get into the next test, and that is, if you turn around for me, Tony, mail, chain mail, riveted mail. I don't know what's gonna happen here. Maybe we'll get through. I mean, let me have a look. The tip of the blade does get some good depth before it actually runs into the resistance of the rings, but actually busting through the links themselves, Only one way to find out. I am going to put a glove on for this one just in case. Something that I'm really, really happy about so far is the ergonomics and the comfort on the handle that I have done. I have been pleasantly surprised how comfortable it is. It feels so good in the hand. It's really, really comfortable. Perfect for my hand as well, because obviously the original one, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, was a touch small in my opinion. This one fits my hand perfectly. I am really, really happy with this, and obviously it is that beautiful Jarrah burl. Could this guard be a little tiny bit bigger? In my opinion, yes and no. Yes, personally, we're just talking an extra little bit on this guard would just make me feel a little bit more, you know, happy about that. But at the same time, it is still functional. I think that's important to mention here. That is just a personal preference thing. But in terms of actually, like, you know, if I was to parry with this particular blade, no, this guard is way too small to provide any reasonable hand protection. It is purely there just to be able to put more leverage into the blade and protect your fingers. So let's see how that bears out when we try and put as much force as possible into this male and bust through. Right here, I'm holding Tony just because I don't want him to fall down. Don't worry, it'll help me put in more leverage if anything else. Wow, that is unexpected. So I'm not going to be able to get the camera to show you, but this, no joke, got stuck on the top of it. So this is your ring here. It actually got stuck in between the ring like this. That is one in a bloody million. All right, let me do that again. I think that one got through. Well, I mean, you can just look at it, right? But whether or not that actually busted through perhaps a broken link before, oh no, that is through. So we did get through. And to be fair, the edge damage on the tip is still pretty much nothing. So that got through on its own. That was not a pre-existing hole or damage in the male, that just got through. So, fuck, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm scared to pull this one out, honestly. So this here did make it through. This here is actually a link that it has elongated and gone through, but that is definitely enough to penetrate everything. And I'm actually thoroughly impressed here. I hit the core on that one. I actually hit the core by accident, and we have no edge deformation on the tip. I'm really, really fucking happy about that. So, I mean, look, this is not an exhaustive test. This isn't like, you know, we have a full Hallberg here or anything, but this is able to bust through male, which is really awesome. It also hit the core a couple of times in there, which is obviously solid steel. There's no edge deformation here. I'll show you guys. So I think that is actually a win. Yep, that's through. Like that is through. Well, because what I'm doing is I'm making sure every time I check that I'm not hitting where there's like previous damage, right? And every single time, funnily enough, we've been hitting the links. We haven't been busting them, but we've definitely been elongating them. So obviously they start as a round circle, and when the blade forces its way through, it forces it kind of into this shape, and it allows more of the blade to actually travel through. I think it's kind of paramount for any sort of dagger or fighting knife to have somewhat of, I would consider to be, a reasonable flight path. The reason why is, like, you're not going to be throwing knives all the time, but it is a technique that can be applied, and I think that there are some benefits to having a nice aerodynamic blade outside of being thrown. So let's see how this one can be thrown. Let's just see if it has any somewhat semblance of a reasonable flight path and how easy it is to actually get it to stick in. I think for this particular blade, because it is kind of like, you know, a big thrust-centric blade, I'm going to be doing a no-spin technique in particular. I was rather unhappy with the, we'll call it the impact, so I might actually try, I think we'll try some wood, just because I feel like this one lacks any presence. But it is hitting point on, and it is embedding itself in. So far so good. Let's just try quickly a different medium. I must say, I'm actually rather impressed by the construction method. I didn't expect it to break or anything like that, but I did expect it to be not the most ideal. And so far, it's actually held up reasonably well. No rattling, no nothing. I haven't had to actually tighten it or anything, so I am quite pleased by that. We've got a ballistic head here. Let's see how gnarly it is when we just stab something. So let's come in right at the eye. That is particularly, oh, we've got our blood coming out straight down in the skull. Oh shit. Embedded to the hilt. We're dripping blood all throughout our face here, coming straight down, obviously. Yeah, this blade in the face is truly beautiful. It felt beautiful in the thrust. So, what do we think of our World War II Fairbairn Sykes Commando Fighting Dagger? Well, in terms of the design, I'm a big fan, like I mentioned. I think the blade is designed gorgeously. It's actually very, very similar to a sword that I currently, I have, that has pretty much the exact same cross-section and geometry. It literally just looks like you chopped the top of the sword off, right? So in terms of and that's a very thrust-centric sword, of course. So in terms of a thrust-centric dagger, it is fantastic, like 10 out of 10, not only design, but the issues that I have with this particular dagger is more so the example that I got, right? The one that I purchased, it is just not up to, especially with the warp, right? That's my biggest gripe with it. It does have a rather simple construction, which, I mean, it means less things are gonna go wrong, but at the same time, it means that it's not perhaps the most robust design, specifically because one of the things I didn't like, to get the original handle to have a specific weight, it seems that there is like a large hollow section, which means that the tang actually can rattle from side to side. Like when I first received it, the guard wasn't perfectly in line with the blade because it is such a simple construction. The pieces are just essentially friction held together by the tension of the screw, which leaves it so that there can be a little bit of problems with it. So that's why I wasn't a fan of that. But now with the wood handle, everything is nice and snug and tight, and nothing has moved. In all of the testing today, it is still completely rock solid, so I'm very, very happy about that. In terms of how you would actually use this blade, I mean, obviously it's documented how you should use this blade. One of the things that I think a lot of people kind of underestimate when it comes to a blade is the dexterity that you can actually have with a particular blade. You know, if you go to grab a blade like this, you're able to articulate your wrist and actually, slice them, right? It's very easy to be able to move this thing around, and it is very, very nicely balanced. Both when I received it, to be fair, like when I received it, the balance was awesome, but I'm a little bit more happy with this balance. This balance to me personally is just a little bit more to my preference. In terms of its actual thrusting capabilities, it was a fucking monster. It thrust through everything. So I have no doubt that this thing in the war would have been absolutely terrifying to run up against. It even got through chainmail. I didn't actually expect to be able to get through the mail, but it did, which really just impressed me more than anything else. And the actual, to be fair here, the heat treating on the blade, this blade is very, very hard. When we did the Rockwell test on it, it was kind of maxing out the files that I had. So it's bloody hard. And I think that is borne out in the fact that there is no edge damage. But that is gonna be all. Thank you guys for watching. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed this one. I've been wanting to get to this blade for a while. Perhaps if you guys enjoyed it, we'll do some more dagger stuff, because daggers are fun. They're like swords, just really, really short, of course. That's essentially what it is. Anyway, as always, I'll see you next week in another episode. Have a good one.